Hi, I'm Layla McNeil,
Hi, I'm Sophia Devine.
and we are joined with our school counselors, Miss Bogan, Miss Smith, and Miss Parker. And we have Kathy Minton here. Kathy Minton is the founder and the principal owner of Happy Owl Media Inc., a Brooklyn based production company. Graduate of Arlington Central School District, she launched and oversaw digital networks for Wired, Bon Appetit, Glamour, Teen Vogue, and Vogue. Oh, and now we are going to start with the first question. What is your exact role as an executive producer?
Well, this is an interesting question because what I want to let you know is an executive producer role means many different things. So an executive producer on a feature film pretty much provides the funding for that feature film. An executive producer for the theater does the same thing. But an executive producer in television and or digital is really the creative person behind the show and responsible for all elements. And that's really why I chose to go more into television and digital, is because you really get to make and create the content, unlike in a feature film or unlike in the theater.
Our next question is, what does a typical workday look like for you?
Well, right now, a typical workday for me is largely development. I don't have a production up and running right now. So what I do is reach out to my content connectors, I call them. So some people come to me to pitch projects. On a typical day, I might hear a pitch or two. And then I also am creating my own pitches and content. And so that often involves on a daily basis doing a lot of research because I am doing unscripted content, and unscripted requires a lot of research, I would say. I'm also creating content, meaning I'm working on creating children's programming. So I spend a big part of my day doing the dishes, but while doing the dishes, trying to come up with like creative ideas. For instance, even today, I was talking to someone earlier who's a content provider, and he has a 2-year-old son. And his 2-year-old son wanted his toenails cut, so they turned it into a dinosaur game. So then today I came up with a new idea for kids called Don't Touch My Dinosaur Toes. So I'm busy researching that. So a typical day, I would say, is not so typical, but that's the part that I love.
That's amazing. And the next question is, what inspired you to do executive producing?
Well, I would say what inspired me initially was wanting to create my own worlds and my own content. That's really what inspired me. And that goes way back to the days of Mrs. Bogan and I being best friends and, purchasing a little, at the time it was Super 8 cameras, which were very small, and enlisting all our friends and writing movies and coming up with just silly ideas in films. So the inspiration goes way back, but it's largely about the need, the want, the desire, the soul-filling world of writing and creating stories. That's the heart of it.
That was very good. Next question is, do you think that your gender affects anything in your workforce?
100%. 100% my gender affects what I do. And I will say, now that I'm older and I've spent, many long years in production, in the world of television and development, at that time there were very few female directors, very few female show creators. And it was a tough road and not an easy road. And it's gotten so much better. But that's because there are organizations that, if you're interested, you may want to look into, women supporting other women. There's an organization called New York Women in Film and Television, and I'm a member of that. I'm also the member of an organization called Media Mavens, and that was initially founded just to get women work because it was hard. Media Mavens still on a daily basis will list jobs that are out there. So that's been enormously useful. And there's another organization, it's called WIN, Women in Networks. So basically, that's also women either mentoring each other or helping each other get work and get ahead. And because of those, and because of what came before, it's easier, but it's still not better. Meaning, if you look at the latest statistics right now, particularly of women female directors, despite one just winning the Oscar, by the way, for Best Director, the numbers are still really low. I think you're looking at probably 25%, out of the 100% of directors are women. And that's way better than it was even 10 years ago, which was something like 2%. So it gets better, but gender certainly affects the roles and the work still today.
That's really interesting. And our next question was, did you attend college? And if so, what college did you attend?
Yes, I attended college with Mrs. Bogan. My major was English, but I do want to say at the time that I went to college, there was no film major at my particular college. So I did every film course and every film history class that I could. And that's really where I feel, initially I learned so much and I blossomed into, what I really wanted to do, which was, as I said before, create and tell stories.
Next question is, what was your favorite project to work on and what project stood out to you the most?
A very tough question, what is my favorite project? Because basically what happens is when I take a project on, it's my favorite. I love all the projects that I do, even from the earliest stages. I'm all excited now about this possible dinosaur project, just as a for instance. I really get a charge from all of them. I'll tell you the hardest part, because I do love my projects so much and put so much into them, they don't always move forward. And, I've often said, I have a graveyard that I'll visit regularly of projects that just didn't get off the ground for whatever reason. And that's hard because you really put yourself out there, personally, when you're trying to create and get a show up and running. And, it's tough because, as your question states, all of them are my favorites. What was the second part of your question?
What stood out to you the most? What project stood out?
I would say what stood out the most and what one of my fondest memories is, one of the first shows that I created and was able to make was Gullah Gullah Island on Nickelodeon. And the very first day when I walked out onto the set, which was the size of an airport hangar, and there were about 100 people on the set just waiting for me, to let's get this baby started. I walked out and I almost burst into tears. I was just filled with oh my God, I actually created this world. And it was a totally artificial world. It was, a yellow puppet waiting in the wings for me and, a giant set. And it was all, born out of my imagination. And here it was in reality. And it was a wonderfully fulfilling, magical moment for me. And it continues to this day. Every time I have a show that, that first day when you're up and running, there actually is nothing more exciting. It's almost like the first day of school. You're afraid, what could go wrong, but you're also really excited.
Next is, what did you mean by you were responsible for all the Met Gala videos? Like what videos?
So 2015 was the Met Gala, and I was in charge of all the videos. So what that means is during the Met Gala, all the stars come, in their wonderful outfits, and I was at the top of the stairs with Andre Leontali, who's a wonderful personality and worked at Vogue for many years as an editor. And he would interview all the folks coming up, in their outfits and have them talk about it. So I was responsible for the videos, meaning, I hired the crew. I oversaw all the questions. I selected who was going on camera, and I had to get all that video up, within the hour. So I was also running back and forth. So downstairs, I had a fleet of editors, probably 12, busily editing the footage as we're filming it so that we could put it immediately up, because people like to see those sort of things. So, it was a lot of pressure. And I had a wonderful team of people working with me. And it was a lot of fun. And I felt deeply insecure because everyone was so gorgeous in their outfits and their splendor and, all that. But it was great.
So our next question was, if you were to advertise your job, what would you say to get people interested in becoming an executive producer?
Well, I think I would use some key words, which I think are really important in the life of an executive producer. First up would be creative. You have to be willing to create something from nothing. You have to be a self-starter. There's nobody here overseeing me every day. I'm just, self-starting every project. And you have to be a people person, because this is not the sort of thing you can do alone. You have to work with a lot of creative, talented people. And there's a lot of balance to that, because ultimately you have the ultimate creative say as the executive producer, but you want to hear everyone's voice. So being a people person is key. So just to repeat, what I would put out there is a creative self-starter and a people-loving person will make you the best executive producer of all time.
And this is one that we all wanted to know. Have you ever met celebrities? And if so, which ones?
Yes, I have met numerous celebrities. Let me start with, well, I don't know how many you want to hear. I really enjoyed meeting Spike Lee. I had a project with his brother and sister at Nickelodeon, and I'm a huge fan. And I happen to think he's one of the best filmmakers in American history. I really, really do. And so it was such a pleasant honor to meet him. And, he was surprisingly humble and kind, and very generous, of course. I would say the other celebrity that I've worked with and met multiple times is Oprah. And Oprah is exactly who she is. And I have to say, those are the best celebrities that I've met, are the ones that are the same in front of camera as behind, and not all of them are. But Oprah is, what you see is what you get. And, what can I say? She's an incredibly lovely, magnanimous person, along with her best friend, Gayle King, is exactly the same as well. Somebody who is the same in front of camera and behind. And then lastly, various rock stars through my projects. One never went, one tragically never went forward. It was with the Rolling Stones. And it was an animated story of Charlie Parker, because it just so happens they're huge fans of his work. And unfortunately, Sony came in to fund it, and then the funding was pulled. But I would have to say Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, because he was exactly who, in front of camera, behind camera. And he was just delightful. I really, really enjoyed meeting and speaking to him.
The next question is, if you could go back in time and change your career, would you, or why would you, and why would you not?
If I could go back in time, I tell you, I would visit my graveyard of projects, and I would pray that every one of them goes forward. I would really want to just keep making more shows, making more projects. That's really what I love. And if I went back in time, that's the first thing I would want to do, is make sure that they all happen and get to have a life of their own, because that's eventually what happens.
Do you want to keep going? That was the ending question.
Ooh.
So we went through them all.
Well, how about I ask you guys a few questions, if I may? So, Layla, are you interested in any part of media or?
Yeah, when you explained in the first question what executive producing really was, I was like, whoa. I'm in the drama club, and that really sparked some interest in me.
That's great. Do you have a sense of like writing or directing or acting or all of it?
I actually wrote a scene in the drama club. I got picked for writing. I love writing. It's one of my favorite things to do.
That's great. And how about you, Sophia? Is there any part of this that interests you?
So I really think it's a really cool job, and I don't think I would do it as like a main job, but I think I would definitely be interested in doing things like it on free time and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. There's plenty of opportunity for that as well. You know, everything from YouTube videos to, you know, there's just endless interesting jobs in production as well, you know, that you can get involved in. Props or animation or costume design, set design. The list is endless.
It sounds like there's so many opportunities out there. We're all completely impressed. Kathy, thank you so much. Even more impressed with Layla and Sophia for running the interview. Great job. On behalf of the Career Council at Van Wyck, we want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I want to say a special shout out to Layla and Sophia. Your questions were amazing and really got me thinking about, you know, the work that I do. And, you know, I really appreciate, you know, your enthusiasm and interest. Thank you.
Thank you again. Everybody, give a wave.